everybody? It's Coach LaChapelle, making this video to give my experience in coaching in my first 3 years or so in the industry, something, and then kind of go through my journey, and at the end talk about maybe some things I wish I knew, some things I know now, some things I can add to you if you're looking to get into the industry, and just overall general advice and things I can give of that nature, and kind of touch on my experience, and maybe you can learn something from it all. It's gonna be a really basic video. I'm not gonna cut or edit anything. I'm just gonna let it run and go from there. So a little bit about me. I grew up playing sports as a kid. I grew up with a twin, so I was uber competitive. Um, Everything we did, it was about competition and about beating my brother, and everything he did was about beating me. So, grew up really competitive there. I'd only ever play 2 sports in a given year because, that was kind of my parents' thing. Like, we have a lot going on. This is what we can commit to, and that's 2 sports a year. And what a blessing that is to even be able to play one is just an unbelievable blessing. So, but yeah, I grew up playing a lot of sports, and those 2 sports for me were generally football and baseball. But I also played soccer growing up, and then with my brother in the backyard, you name it, we played it, from volleyball to tennis to a lot of basketball games. And I was always just enamored with athletes as a kid. I really thought and believed that I would turn into Shaquille O'Neal when I was younger. I just thought I was going to get old and I would literally be Shaq. As weird as that is, from the physical appearance to his genetic appearance, I just thought that would be me. Obviously, that was not the case. That being said, I loved competition. I loved to compete. So sports are just always a part of my life. And I think I don't come from an athletic family per se. I was the first person in my family to play college athletics, period. But I come from a family that appreciates sports for sure. My mom's side, massive sports fans. My father was the same. And I think for me, one thing I always enjoyed was the pursuit of athletes and like chasing glory. And that sounds like really corny, and I know not even every athlete pursues glory, but for me, that was something I was really passionate about. I remember watching Lance Armstrong as a kid and just thinking that was really cool, and his journey and his passion, and that's something for me that I always appreciated. Their story, and overachieving adversity was always big for me, and that's kind of the athletes I gravitate now as an adult as well. Anyways, getting back on the topic of kind of me, I played high school sports. I lettered in football. Southern California, really competitive. Some of this athletic journey stuff's gonna be video for another day. But moving on from there, played junior college at Eastside Junior College in Bellevue, Washington, for a program that's now defunct. Had a time of my life. I loved it. Like I said, I was the first person in my family to play college sports, so it was a really big deal. Loved it. Had some Division II, Division III offers. I committed to a Division III. And from there, I turned it down when I was accepted into my dream school at the University of Washington, which is a big deal for me considering I had a 2.2 high school GPA and really shouldn't even have graduated from a normal public school. So it was a big deal for me. I worked really hard on my grades and academics in junior college, and ultimately I made a decision to go to UW and try and walk onto the football team. Again, video for another day, but long story short, I never made the team. Never even got to attend a walk-on tryout. And I was in this weird leeway of COVID hit, and I couldn't try out for the team at UW. And I was going, okay, what do I do here? And my undergraduate degree was in communication, and I was in a certificate program through the Foster School of Business, which was sales, which I had kind of gotten all into and kind of had pushed away journalism. I took a sales internship, and with COVID too, it was like it was a different internship than it would have been normally if there was no COVID. And I hated it. I absolutely hated it. And I was like, all right, what do I love? And I was like, what I love is training. And it's crazy because you had asked me 3 years ago, I've been like, all I love is football. It's all I want. All I want to do is coach. All I want to do is coach football, the position to position. And, for me, my mindset had shifted. When I was training to walk onto the football team, I was training 3 times a week, and I lived like the party lifestyle for sure while I was at UW. Did a lot of crazy stuff and lived the college life, if you will. That being said, I sacrificed a lot of those things at multiple points to try and walk onto the team and go train. And, I remember I had a girlfriend at the time, and she'd be like, I think you're missing out on a lot when you don't do stuff to go train. And I was like, I'm not missing out on anything. There's nothing I'd rather be doing. And that's kind of how I felt. and I just would go all in on it. And I'd write my own program, I'd write my own speed training, I'd write my own strength and conditioning, and I would just read these research articles late at night on ridiculous things and learn about training, watching Louis Simmons, all this stuff, and I just got obsessed. And especially when I would see results, I just became completely obsessed with everything that was going on and in the field. And that was pretty clear. That was kind of the path I wanted to take. And I was going to go to play football this Division II, and they said, hey, we're not even going to have a football season next year because of COVID. And so I was like, oh man, what do I do? And I had a friend reach out to me like, hey, there's this coaching program at the University of Washington. I think you're a good fit if your athletic career is done. And I was like, shoot, okay. So I applied, got accepted, and immediately I reached out to UW, and I was going to be a strength and conditioning intern with their football program. And that was kind of tough for me. I was like, I want to play, but this is good. Okay, I guess I'll just transition into coaching. And obviously in my master's program, it was 1 year at UW, and I had to have a coaching curriculum, practicum, internship, GA, whatever. And so that's what it was going to be. And then during COVID, the Pac-12 said, hey, we're not going to have football season, whatever. UW says, hey, we're not going to bring out any interns. We're not even having a season as of right now. So I'm like, shoot, what am I doing? What am I going to do? I was just in a weird place. I don't even have a practicum coaching internship. I remember just being so stressed about it. And I took a shot in the dark, and I sent a DM to Les Spellman, who if you don't know, he's a world-class speed coach. With regards to North America, he's the premier #1 speed coach. Works with all the NFL draft, not all, but a good portion of top-level NFL draft players eligible. If they have the right agent, they'll work with Les, and Les has worked with a very high clientele list. And that doesn't just stick to football, from Olympic athletes to rugby, USA Rugby. He's truly the best in the world. And I believe that 100%. And basically just sent him a DM, explained my situation, should have shot in the dark. And Les sent me a DM back, considering he gets thousands and thousands of DMs a day. I don't know why he replied to me. It was like, hey, yeah, we'll bring you on as a data analyst. Let's do it. And that was at the time I was like, okay, I got it. And Les is what an opportunity, but I don't know if I appreciated it. And truly for me, that was the best thing that could have happened in my career. And there's no doubt about that in my mind. And here's the reason why, is that it made me just know I wanted to coach. And, I worked for Les virtually, worked on a lot of data, a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of things. I was just banging my head against a wall. But it was such an invaluable experience. And I'm going to come back to that when we're done talking about my journey. So I spent a year there through graduate school, and was in fantastic shape at the time. All I was doing was this virtual data, and you get, opportunity to be in really good shape. As you go further along in coaching, it can get tougher and tougher. And I'll touch on that too. That'll be a video for another day. But, if you're not careful, your health can get out of control when you're working long hours. And that's something I'm now really dialing back into. That being said, moving from there, I spent a year with Les, and knew I wanted to get into the team setting, specifically college football. So applied for an internship at Oregon State University, got the job. And yeah, so this is kind of where I'll kind of get more on my journey per se. It was S&C. And I'm going to touch on something with Les, but I'll go my 3 main college experiences and move back from there. So when I was working for Oregon State, a week before I'm supposed to start working at Oregon State, I get a phone call. And I had already taken an interview and gotten the job. And I answer the phone and say, hello, and hey, this is Coach Brian Klobuchar with Oregon State. Probably should blur that name out, but he was going to be my intern coordinator at the time. And he said, hey, I'm taking a job at Colgate. This doesn't necessarily mean your job is over, or the internship isn't gone, but I'm going to give your information to Coach Candido, and he's going to work from it from there. And that might have been in text form now that I think of it. It was either a text or a call, but that's basically what it said. And here I am going, man, holy cow, I'm supposed to be moving to Corvallis from Seattle, which is not far, in 4 days, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to have this role. But that was a good eye-opener, because that is the industry. Truth be told, that's the industry. It's volatile. And so moving from there, got on I kind of didn't know what I was doing, and I had worked really hard under Les. and he'll be the first one to tell you that. But that being said, I'd worked really hard, but there was things that I guess I don't want to say I didn't understand. I don't want to say I was cocky, but I would just say I was naive. I was a little naive. I thought it was like a big deal that I got this, which it was. It was a really big deal. But that being said, I just think I didn't quite understand, and got to Corvallis, got down there, and I think even still I was just naive, like what I was really getting into, what I was truly going to be doing, like who I really was at Oregon State. And the truth is like when you're an intern, you're a nobody. And I thought like I worked for a year at Spelman, and I'll have some sort of role or responsibility there with sports science, which kind of was discussed with Coach Klobuchar before he left. And right away it was, okay, you have these sheets that has to go up on the racks. You will set up every day. So start setting up now. Figure out how things go, kind of learn on the fly. And then you have sheets and water bottles. If we feel confident you can master those tasks, you can move on. And I just was a little flustered at first, for sure. I didn't know what was going on. It was kind of crazy, working with D1 football. It was a little wild, and I definitely messed up a lot. And I was flustered and kind of didn't know what was going on at times. But I just, kept working. Never was late. Showed up every day, and always had a yes sir, no sir, run everywhere I can mentality. And how can I get better? And for sure, it was intimidating at first as well. And I messed up a lot, but I learned a lot at Oregon State. And one thing that I think is really important is like every experience I've had has prepared me for the next role I go into. And I really believe that. And I think partially that's due to me. What I believe I work very hard. And then secondly, I think it's also I was at the right spots. I interned with really good staffs that gave me a lot of knowledge. And what I take away from Oregon State, I was there through the beginning of the summer phase, throughout training camp, and then the very beginning of the offseason. And then I got an opportunity at Stanford to go there, which I'll touch on in a minute. Excuse me. But what I really got from Oregon State, it was blue collar. And it was old school. Old school, not in the sense of we're going to like destroy our athletes, but old school in the sense of like the work is the work. And this is what we're doing here. You're either going to get on the train or you're going to get left. And I remember when I got there, I really noticed like, wow, these guys are big and they're disciplined and in really good shape. And that's a testament to the strength staff. I really believe that. And yeah, Coach Mack, who's the head guy there, and Coach Candido, who is my intern coordinator, they held me to a high standard, and I definitely didn't always meet that standard, but it was good that it was there, because I got a good understanding of like, this is the industry, this is it. And so I actually really enjoyed my time at Oregon State. I think I learned a lot. The only tough thing though is I was the only intern, and they made it really clear, like, don't hang out with the players, don't be like one of the players, you're not a player. And I really held firm to that. And I had a lot of offers from the guys like, hey, why don't you just come stay at my place? I was sleeping on the floor at the time, didn't have Wi-Fi, had no other job. So financially I was like in a really tough spot there for sure. And anyways, I ended up getting an opportunity at the end of training camp at Stanford. And I interviewed for the role, and I was interested. Stanford was a program that I had a lot of admiration for. It was a place that I had a lot of admiration for, both from the strength staff perspective as well as the coaching staff perspective. And I just, when the opportunity came up, I was like, man, I don't, I remember someone telling me like, you got to, like, you're not getting paid as internships, so get your experience there and then go somewhere else. And that was kind of what was told to me. So, I interviewed at Stanford and I loved it. And, they offered me the job in the interview. So I just told them I need a couple days and I was going to think on it. So yeah, we're going to get to the Stanford part of the story in the second part of the video.